that's no good.
I've not seen any conclusive studies that show that those are effective.
Right, for sure.
Well, yeah, my goal,
So it's
I signed up to run a half marathon last year, and I ended up it got canceled. So it was a virtual half marathon. So the ones that made it to that, it's like, well, I'm gonna virtually run it.
Right, exactly.
But my goal is to actually run
Be able to do one
this year, not for time or anything, but to actually
just finish
be
it.
able to run. At this point, I can. I got COVID last May, and so I had like the long COVID.
Oh my gosh, man!
So that's been fun.
We got lucky kind of on that. We didn't get it at all forever. And then, I know, right? And then we went to Spain. And when we went to Spain, you know, like what's crazy about that is like all the stuff that was in place to like prevent it, you know, but I guess like riding the public transit and stuff, but like, yeah, all that stuff was in place, and you know, that ended up being the place, so.
I'm just up here to say it's 7 o'clock, and are you ready?
Well, I am, Kathleen. I have a few, like my dad and my
Yeah.
sister. Can we give it 5
We
minutes?
can.
And then if they don't come, then that's just on them,
I think they're here.
right?
But I will go upstairs and double check.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So.
Nathan, check for Jamie.
Mhm.
Well, he's gonna check on my 360.
Yeah, just give them just a minute or so and let them
I
come in.
think that's fine, because
So.
it's downstairs.
Mhm.
What do you think about telling YouTube?
I can do that.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, hello.
Hey,
Thank you
Justin.
so much for coming out. It's
How
good to
are
see you.
ya?
I'm doing well.
Congrats on your 10th.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Hi, how are you? Good. Have a nice turnout. Yeah.
I think we'll get some streamers too. Some streamers on YouTube too.
Mhm.
So,
I thought you were the streamer, so
no,
I was
that'd be cool. Yeah, that would be amazing. So,
Did you tell him that you saw Mike? Did he know Mike?
oh yeah,
You saw Mike?
Mike Rust is
Oh,
one
yeah.
of the big people that kind of runs the TEDx up
Yeah.
in Oshkosh.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so I got to see Mike. I hadn't seen Mike in forever.
Yeah,
well-
doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, that's what I told Mel too. She was like, "Does that surprise you?" Like, because she didn't really know him or anything. I'm like, "No, he's pretty." Yeah, like I think we all kind of knew he was gonna do something major.
I figured he was gonna be like surgeon.
Yeah, a doctor, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So,
All I can see.
yeah, that's what. So, but he seems to be doing pretty well. He's got his. He's not remarried. He's got a girlfriend. I got that clarified.
Okay.
By
Yeah.
your fiance. He said girlfriend. He was
Very adamant.
very adamant about that. So his kids are awesome though too. He's got
Nice.
3 kids and they're, you know.
And they're TEDx volunteers.
Yeah,
Well,
he puts
like-
them together.
Yeah, right.
So it was funny. He was late actually to the event. So of all the dumb things to do, right? Somebody did a hit and run on his car, right in the court, right in the court parking lot. He like, first of all, you hit a judge's car. Second of all, it's, you know that it's on video.
cameras everywhere.
Right. And so then like they caught her and she was like, it wasn't me. And you're like,
Your head is sticking out the
Kind
window.
of, yeah,
It's
yeah.
not-
Heads
As
out
you
the
look at the
window,
damage.
so, but the reason he was so late is because a normal like hit and run thing, they just take a report and then they do whatever. But because he has those judge ties, they were doing like a whole bunch of extra investigation. So like, well, was it an intentional thing?
Yeah.
You know, is somebody out to get it? Do we, you know, so they had like 9 police officers taking the report and like out looking for this person in case there could be some kind of danger.
I guess that's a legitimate excuse.
Yeah, he was like, sure, I got the places to be. So,
That beats my excuses.
what do you think, Dad? Do you think my sister is going to come or is she going to just disappoint me?
She's probably gonna be here, but it's gonna be late.
Okay.
If they're out grocery shopping, that's like
So listen, everybody who's here, I'm just gonna stop when they come in reading, and I'm just gonna stare at them. Would you guys all be so kind as to just turn and stare at them when they come in? And we'll all just stare at them and be like, how dare you?
Yeah.
This very important event, and you know, you dare walk in so late.
Making things awkward is my specialty.
Yes, absolutely. So, yeah, so I'm good to go then. Let's get off.
Well, terrific. That sounds like a fun thing to do.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Poetry is Normal Presents at the Normal Public Library. I'm Kathleen and work here and help facilitate this program. I want to say a big thanks to Lindsay in the back who's broadcasting us
Thank you.
on YouTube Live. Come on in, have a seat. We're just getting going. You know, it's a welcoming place. You've been here before, so it's nice to see you again. Poetry is Normal Presents is our guest poet series where we get to hear from poets who are regularly publishing, who have published books, perhaps a recent book, and they share their work with us. And this is supported by the Normal Public Library Foundation, so we're very grateful to the foundation for programming like this and other programming in the library. We do this every other month, and we alternate it with our open mic. And some of our open mic people are here tonight too. So if you happen to be a poet in the audience and you want to come back December 20th and read your own work or poems by somebody that you admire, come on back right here. Our theme is winter joy, but we are happy to have any poems, even if they're off theme in our open mic. But tonight, Poetry is Normal presents Justin Hamm. And we're so glad to have Justin back at the library. He has read here before. He's shown his wonderful, wonderful photographs in our art gallery upstairs. And I got to take one of those home, as well as all of the books he's ever written, back to the chapbook days. I have quite a Justin Hamm collection of my bookshelves at home. So what I'll do is have Justin tell us everything he wants us to know about himself, the poems that he'll be reading, his current book, his past books, anything you want to tell us, including what it's like to do a TEDx talk, if you want to share.
Sure, yeah,
about
if you
that.
guys are interested in hearing about it, sure.
Yeah, so Justin Hamm, welcome.
Yeah, thanks. Hi, everybody. I'm Justin. And before I get started, I just want to say thanks to Kathleen and to the Normal Public Library. In addition to having read here in the past and shown my photographs, I have a history as a student here, or as a citizen of Bloomington Normal. This is my hometown. That's why I got a lot of family here today. And so like going back to high school, writing research papers, they were written right here in the Normal Public Library. So it's very cool to be able to come back and read from my latest book here. So this is Drinking Guinness with the Dead, poems 2007 through 2021. This is my latest, and it collects most of the poems from my first three books and about a chapbook's worth of new poems as well. I have been touring this book all year. I've been all over the place, 7 or 8 states. Where did we do? We've done St. Louis, we've done Detroit, Toledo, Hot Springs, Arkansas. It's been very cool. And the last place I was, as Kathleen mentioned, was Oshkosh, Wisconsin, for a TEDx talk. And I was very fortunate to be able to do that. And it kind of fit in really well with this particular book and doing kind of a culminating project out of all the poems that I've written, because going back all the way to 2007, I kind of made it my mission to embrace regionalism, to be the kind of writer that said, hey, I'm going to write about the Midwest, and I'm not going to be ashamed of that, the way some people might feel like it's not the kind of place that could sustain literature. And I said, well, I don't believe that, and that's going to be my thing, and I'm going to explore it. And so, 15 years worth of stuff that really fits that sort of theme. And I was lucky enough to be asked to do this talk, and that's kind of what the talk ended up being about. So I spoke a little bit about the idea of the Midwest as flyover country, as a place where people don't think anything's going on. You know, there's nothing worth paying attention to here. And my argument was, if you want to know about America, this is where you should look, because all the good, all the bad, right, all the conflict, all the controversy, it's all right here in microcosm. And if you pay attention, these are where those things are happening. If you want to know what the pulse of the country is, this is probably where you want to look. And so that was kind of the theme of my talk. And then I chose poems that would illustrate some of that, right? So poems about everyday life, poems about some of those conflicts, the politics that are here, the issues that we face, also some of the very beautiful things that people ignore when they fly over us. And that's really been my theme for about 15 years. If you guys are interested in what it was like to give a TED Talk, I mean, I guess the process was you talk with the people who organize it, and they kind of, once they accept the talk that you're going to do, they kind of stay out of your hair. They just kind of check in on you every once in a while. So like, after they accepted, yeah, we like what you're going to do, we saw, you know, mine was kind of a marriage of photographs and poems together. Once they saw what I was going to perform, how it went with the photographs, and they knew the theme, and they were like, okay, yes, this is this talk that we accept. And then they really just kind of give you a couple of deadlines, right? Like, so hey, we need all these slides. By the way, you know, we'd like you to come on Zoom, and at this point, you need to be able to give your talk to us so we can see what it's like. It doesn't have to be, you know, polished or whatever, but we'd like to get it from beginning to end. And so, so I got on with the two organizers of the event. Can we help you?
You can start now.
I'm getting started.
It's not a party until my sister gets here. For sure. Anybody who knows her can tell you that. So, yeah, so, you know, they make you give the talk in front of them. And so I got to give it there. And then, gosh, it's really not, I mean, it's not as interesting as it might seem. You just give the talk a million times, like, you know, everywhere. Like, I would give it in the car on the way to work. I would give it, you know, when these guys were eating dinner, so when they were trying to get their time on their phones or their tablets, you know, and I would annoy them with it or whatever. I told these guys, Abby and Sophie and Mel all could have given the same talk just as well as I could have, because they knew the whole thing. And in fact, sometimes better than me. I would stumble over something and they would roll their eyes and like correct it in the middle as I was practicing it. So the event itself is a little more intimidating. I have given one other kind of big talk before in front of a large audience in Manila, the Philippines, a few years ago. I did the keynote speech for the World Scholars Cup. And so I had some experience speaking in front of a big audience, but it was weird. Like when you get there in the morning, they want to do makeup. And I was like, that's interesting. So for your information, bald guys like me just get a whole bunch of powder, like put on their head, and then they look, and then they're like, no, that's not enough powder. And then they put some more powder on until they're sure. And then they tell you you're not allowed to scratch it and you're not allowed to sweat. Right. So that was, you know, kind of interesting. You know, the trying not to sweat part when you're nervous or whatever. So, and then other than that, they're really very controlled. Like all you have to do is be able to do your thing, and then people just kind of like appear out of nowhere and be like, it's time for you to be here. And you just go to that place, and then they're like, you stand there. And you stand there. And then they're like, when this person moves, you walk on stage and do your thing, right? And they're very adamant about it, and they don't mess around. Like they have it kind of down to a science. They know, you know, beforehand all the kind of stage setup, because they record it professionally with like 5 cameras, right? So they just tell you, this is where you have to stand. You know, this is your area. This is where, so I had like a little music stand, you know, for my poems or whatever. And they're like, this is how high you're allowed to have it. You can't have it any higher than that because our close-in shot has to do this kind of thing. And they're like, you know, so you're totally free to do whatever you want as long as you don't violate these 26 things that we need you to do so that the video is perfect, you know? Yeah, but I guess like once you start to get the audience feedback though, like so for my talk, I had some funny things in there, and immediately after like you hear the audience laugh or whatever, then it's really not any different than talking in front of you guys right now. And in fact, one of the things that I was lucky enough to do beforehand, when I was nervous the night before, I went out to the, it's a beautiful old like vaudeville theater it was built in the 1880s, and it's just gorgeous. But I just went out and like sat in the house, walked around, you know, like when you see the TED Talks on YouTube, like it looks all like untouchable, like holy cow, how could I ever get up and be that polished, you know, the TED's like floating and all that. But it's all just wood painted and whatever. And once you go out and like touch the, you know, setting a little bit and whatever, then you're like, it's no different than any other place that you talk in front of people. So that kind of settled the nerves. And more than one speaker did that, you know, and we made sure like we talked in the house and like walked around like it was just a normal, regular place. And I think that put all of us at ease. And the other cool thing is you're with about 13 other speakers, and they're all going through the same thing, and they're all nervous too. So like once you build that camaraderie, you know, and you're all kind of talking about that, then nobody feels that way. And you also know that you have like at least 13 other people that are not hostile to you in your talk. Like you can count on those people because you've met them, like they're rooting for you because you're rooting for them to do a good job. And that, you know, so you've already got your audience plans so that you can, you know, be able to feel pretty comfortable about it. That's kind of what it is, you know. I'm excited to see what the video looks like when it's all done, and you know, when they make me seem more professional than I am. So, yeah. But if you guys don't mind, I'm going to jump in and I'm going to read some poems from Drinking Guinness with the Dead, and I'm going to dig back to some old ones because that's kind of fun, and I haven't read some of these in a long, long time. And then I'll jump into some new ones, and then maybe we'll play a little game that I like to play where I just let you guys call out some page numbers, and we'll just pick the poem that's closest to that page. So this is called Goodbye Sancho Panza, and it's a special one to me because this is the poem that got picked up by the World Scholars Cup as part of their curriculum. And it ended up being a pretty cool thing for me. About 50,000 kids around the world studied it as part of their curriculum. And then I was flown to the Philippines to give a talk about it and interact with lots of kids. It was a pretty cool experience. So I'll read that one to you to start. Goodbye, Sancho Panza. I meet a Slim Jim munching Sancho Panza, goateed now, all leathered out and in close contact with his inner beast. 500 years after the death of his beloved mule, he rides a Kawasaki, wants to know if I will sally forth with him through Missouri as his loyal, dim-wit squire. There's this broad he's supposed to meet near the riverside in Cape, he explains. So I pull out my blues harp and toot a few notes while I think of the baby, my sweet, scented daughter whose pudgy upturned nose matches my own. A newborn is a fragile thing, a soft, cooing heap of possibly, maybe, long before it hardens into something permanent, like a soul. And for the first 3 weeks, I refused to use her name. Earlier tonight, I drank to overcoming these fears, to Jesus and science and green bean casserole. But Sancho is as sober as an ice cube, as serious as any grain of sand. And despite the longing, I'm forced to decline. Missouri is veined with deep, winding caverns, so many of her secrets tightly concealed. And anyway, I'm too old and civilized for the sort of digging now that it would take to learn anything good. So this poem comes with a visual. If you look at the really old guy here with the white beard, so some people say we look a little bit alike, and I'm starting to get some of that white in my beard too. But so this is what it's like when, you know, you think you're never gonna get old, and then you start looking in the mirror and you see your dad in the mirror instead of yourself. This is called the flower epiphany. This morning I decide I want to make biscuits the proper way. Flour and Crisco and buttermilk all meted out in careful measure. But there is an accident involving the flour canister. A white mushroom cloud rises, coats my hair, my eyebrows and bare shoulders, and I cough and hit my head on a cabinet. And I say a word I won't repeat in case my baby daughter ever reads this poem. When I examine myself, angling my scalp lightward, staring hard into the bathroom mirror, this sprinkled overlook plays tricks, and I see my father in two versions. Once, as a young man, when he wore so much drywall dust with a vast, innocent dignity, and one as an old, old man, when the color will be nothing more than another dreaded sign of his accumulated age. Man, I wrote this before you were gray. You are. And I ask myself out loud, is it really so wrong to want to hold certain things while your grip is still strong, rather than wait until whatever you might wish to hold is too heavy for old man hands? It only keeps falling away as soon as your swollen fingers can close in around it. Poem for Saturday. It was just one of those days when the philosophy came easy, as whistling in the shower, and every doorway I stepped through was a metaphor. Early September and already a few leaves turning to rust seemed like a good day to wonder why nobody ever taught me how to tie my own necktie. Like a good day to send a message to all the people I love in the afterlife and unpack my warehouse of blessings, one silent thank you at a time. To shoot photos of empty park benches beneath half-open windows cut into buildings on the brink of collapse. If there ever was a day, friend, to fish and catch nothing but the glint of sunlight on your hook and a few slippery notions about living, then what I'm telling you, this day was it. And I did it. I did it all. But most of all, what I did was I refused to be hurried. In fact, I was about as efficient as the process of erosion. And when I came home in late afternoon, happy as a lit lamppost, I did not once touch that book in which the overdegreed genius informs us that consciousness, that the human soul, is no more than grand illusion. Instead, I spent the evening caring only for the loveliness of my wife's hair tucked behind her ears, and the almost imperceptible music of my little daughter's sneakers swishing through the beautiful, high, unruly backyard grass that I had no plans of mowing anytime soon. The Carpenter. Sawdust drifted against his boot soles. Fingers calloused, palms ghosted white by drywall mud. Who knows vibration of circular saw and router? Who knows the hieroglyphs of practical geometry? Whose pencil pins stray hairs behind his ear? Who also grasps the cold algorithms of construction? The utter violence in his tools, the slicing and the striking, the ripping and the binding, all necessary to build or repair. This knowledge, too, lives quietly in his hands. This one's called The Reason. In Arkansas once, near the Buffalo River, I wonder if you remember, the loneliest bull elk left in America slowly lifted his racked head and looked around a vast empty field. It was nearly dark, the first faint stars blinking to life above, a rare moment of quiet in our car.
Even the girls seemed enchanted. And me, I saw myself precisely as I would be if I ever lost you or those babies. Uncertainty of movement, afloat in a field of nothing. Almost too much effort even to lift my thorny head. Which is all just to say I love you more than these meager words convey. And this is the reason I have brought you an enormous crate of tacos. This is one of the true stories. This is called Marriage Detail number 2. You have been fighting. At the restaurant to taunt her, you lean over and whisper, "I'm just gonna kill you with kindness." She rips into her lemon chicken, pauses, says, "That's good to know. I'm going to kill you with a knife." Then that long moment of silence as you wait and finally realize she really isn't going to laugh. Marriage detail number 1. She wakes me unexpectedly in the dead of night, panicked, breathing hard, asking, "Is she talking to me? Is she talking to me?" "Who?" I say. "The doll," she says. "The doll." Then immediately begins to snore again, leaving me alone to contemplate that while staring into the darkness. The smallest crowd ever to attend one of my readings was a lone grandmother in futuristic spectacles who I worried had wandered in by mistake. But she was a keen listener who sighed and placed her hand to her chest at all the right moments. God bless her. In fact, she was only a hair less enraptured than the folks at this birthday party I once attended, where an admittedly gifted clown sat on a stool, blinking his makeup-caked eyes and twisting balloons into strange shapes from every kingdom, phylum, genus, and species ever to feature in a special on the Discovery Channel. He was quite good. Even the adults were hopeless with admiration, lifting their souvenirs to the light, whistling, grinning, and shaking their heads. "He's an artist," somebody's dad or uncle proclaimed, and a murmur of agreement circled the room. On a nearby coffee table, a can overflowed with tips. I'm not really bitter. I've always believed jealousy can be a fine teacher if we allow it. From my distant corner, I nudged the cat away with the toe of my shoe, wiped the green frosting from my mustache, and began to write everything down in my pocket notebook under the heading, "Ideas for Future Readings." My friend Jared Smith's here, and we played baseball together. So I've got to read this one for him. I think he'll enjoy this one. So this is called A Real Team Effort, AKA the best poem I ever wrote about a jockstrap. And here you'd gone and told yourself the morning couldn't possibly get any worse, not after you realized you'd left your jockstrap swinging from your bedroom doorknob as you rushed headlong into the purple prairie morning, late again for the 6 a.m. travel bus and facing the prospect of a doubleheader behind the dish without proper protection. And that's when you see it. Your mother's souped-up Camaro comes peeling into the high school parking lot, skids to an action movie stop in front of the bus, just as the driver jerks her into drive. And now, incredibly, here is your old man, sprinting in desperation, a thief or a madman, and there is something in his right hand, something which he has tucked against his side for protection, as if it were a football or perhaps an enormous jewel of untold value. There comes a pounding, and the driver cranks open the side door with impatience, and then he has your jock, which he has just received from your panting sweat-slicked pops, and he, the driver, is holding it out away from himself as if it might be radioactive. And now he's turning, handing it delicately to Coach, whose face goes cruel with wind sprints as he turns and passes it off to Klein, the freshie, cursed to the front seats for having ears too sensitive for upperclassmen conversation. And Klein, the freshie, hands off to Castillo, the backup catcher, who's gunning for your job. And Castillo, with a snicker, gives it to Rosenthal. And Rosenthal, God help him, holds the thing a second too long and lifts it toward his nose. Then Martin, Behringer, then Jonesy and Little Nick. And so it goes, every man's hands on your jockstrap until it reaches that SOB loony 2 seats up. Looney who could reach right out and hand it to you himself, save you that final humiliation. But instead, he passes it to the team manager, who is sitting in the seat directly in front of yours because she's beautiful and because you planned it that way. Now she turns and there it is, dangling between you, frayed and a little off-white from 2 years of use. Through the straps, you can see her eyes. 2 dark lakes where so many other sensitive boys have gone and gotten themselves thoroughly and finally drowned. You reach out to take what is yours and you wonder, is this what the old broken men think of when they stare out their windows into empty backyards, swigging their warm beers and sighing now and then? So I want to do a couple more of the new ones. They're a little different. So this is called Ghost Calling. So sometimes, some poems come from real life. Some poems come from an imagined real life. And that's what I would say that this is. Sometimes as a poet, you take real feelings and you extrapolate from them the possibility of feelings. Sometimes feelings you hope that you never have to actually feel, but you have to kind of go there in order to make something that will move people. And that's what this poem is kind of like. So this is called Ghost Calling. What I can say for certain is some days our ghosts just won't visit. And some days the Illinois landscape becomes a ghost. Frozen fog clinging to corn stubble and winter weed in the field out back where I take the black pup to romp. The cycle of throw and grab, of flee and return until even the pup grows bored and gallops off to sniff around at frost marbled ground. Isn't this just how our ghosts must feel? Surely they tire of returning again and again to the same old songs of grief, regret, apology. I understand that now. Next time you return, I will pour some red wine. I will keep my sad words in a pocket with a button. We can finally move the table and dance as you could never convince me in life. If you can hear me, wife, I have left the lamplight in the front room glowing. Photograph. My grandfather in red suspenders and white t-shirt, dyed dark hair loose, favorite feed cap held against his hip. He stands beside a fledgling juniper that will someday shade his grave. 10,000 days ago this was. You could still find peach soda in Ohio County. Dali had it wrong. The years melt. The clocks continue, brutal as prison guards. Mel and I made it over to Iceland a couple of years ago, and I meant to write some poems about it, and I didn't for a long time. And then over the last year or so, I was finally able to write some. And one of the incredible things about Iceland are the horses there. And they're very, very serious about their horses. Like, it's against the law to own any other horse or bring any other horse in that's not a purebred Icelandic horse, because they don't want to mess up the breeds. And the other thing that's really cool is there's no kind of branding, no marking of the horses at all, and they run semi-wild. Like, they are owned, but really they just kind of have some fences to keep them off the roads. And the horses all go during the warm months, and they go up into the mountains in the center part of Iceland. And then they all kind of get their snowmobiles and stuff, and they all work together, and they go up when the cold weather's coming, and they bring the horses back down. And then they're not really, like, they have barns and stuff to keep them warm and fed, but they don't really care which horses kind of come to what barns. And also, nobody really, you wouldn't worry about anybody stealing a horse, right? Everybody kind of knows whose horses are whose, and the horses know their owners, and the owners know their horses by sight. It's really kind of wild, the way they do that. But we were lucky enough, as we were driving on the road, to have an encounter with some of these horses who were really people friendly, and we got to pet them, and there was one that was really insistent. I think he wanted me to take him home, and I would have if I could have found a way to fit him in the carry-on, because I mean, these animals are beautiful. This one also echoes, if anybody here is a poetry fan at all, there's a poet, James Wright, and he wrote a poem about an encounter that he and his friend Robert Bly, who I think died a year ago today. They had an encounter in Minnesota. They stopped on the side of the road and saw a horse, and it's a very famous poem in the American canon, and so it refers to that too. In Iceland one afternoon I touched a horse, a lovely, smooth, blonde-maned horse, friendly, muscular, half wild, and my heart, soul did not heal, not exactly, but I was pleased to find myself in something of a James Wright poem, thinking to hell with performance evaluations, weed whackers, and research on variable interest rates, straight to hell with pistol-cocked egos and moral Puritans, thinking as I petted his velvet forehead and stroked his tan muzzle, and he pressed into my armpit, that for a minute it was good to have no cell phone service, to stand and touch and breathe, to watch the sharp peaks pierce hazy clouds in the distance, to have immediate quarrel with neither humankind nor wind, to whisper soft and adoring and foolish American nonsense into the ear of this proud horse, this lovely, smooth, blonde-maned horse, this muscular, friendly, half-wild horse I was fortunate enough to touch one afternoon in Iceland. I'm going to throw it to you guys. There are 164 pages. So we'll just do a few, let you guys throw them out, and we'll just pick some random ones. We'll see what's in there. See if they hold up, right?
74.
74. Oh yeah, this is about a time I almost cut my finger off in shop class. Begin with a whole boy. 2 sea green eyes, 10 fingers, and a tangle of dark hair tossed over his forehead. A whole boy with a whole crush on a small girl wearing braces and a rock t-shirt from the early 1970s. Now, throw in a drill press and another boy, one who may or may not also have a crush on the small girl. Observation would seem to suggest that she at least has a crush on him. The whole boy pulls down on the drill press lever, shaping wheels en masse for the class's next project, CO2 race cars for the school derby. He may be working the drill press, but he's watching the small girl and the other boy. And when the two pass in the center of the wood shop, and the small girl hands off a note, the whole boy loses half his concentration. There is suddenly a great quantity of blood. From somewhere inside the mess of blood, a thumbnail corkscrews upward, a heap of mottled flesh, a bone that isn't meant to be seen without an X-ray. The whole boy does not seem to notice. In fact, it is only when the shop teacher chokes out a very bad word and wraps the ruined thumb in his paisley necktie that the whole boy finally glances away from the middle of the room, eyes blinking rapidly in confusion. In some ways, it isn't nearly as bad as it could be. At the hospital, the whole boy and his parents learn that every part is still in place, that the scars will eventually heal. He nods as each grown person reminds him just how lucky he is not to have lost a thumb that day or worse. He nods and seems to agree. Sometimes he even repeats that last word back to the speaker. Worse. But in truth, his mind has never left the woodshop. His mind's eye has never stopped staring into its terrible, tainted center. And in that moment, there is nothing anyone that can say that will make him believe he could ever be whole again.
66.
66. Storm, rural Missouri. Though the coming rain announces itself by rustling the distant corn, the barns remain immutable as weathered gray monks. Without words, they pray over the dog who sleeps forever in his soil bed beside the oranged relic of a horse-drawn plow. On rage the blood sugar wars. The lust for nicotine continues. The time-crumpled angels pull on their Carhartt robes and stand under wide awnings as lightning unstitches the sky. Here, every storm is 40 nights from stating the profound. Maybe we'll do like 2 more, and then I'll do a closer. And then if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to take some of those as well. 38. Already did that one. Give me another one.
26.
26. Already did that one.
How do we do this? Third time's a charm.
All right, one more.
Good number.
Ooh.
I'm nervous.
Spit it out.
Did you do 72?
I don't know. Shall we find out? Worried playground daddy's blues. On the playground, I strum guitar while my daughter dangles upside down from the bar above the tall slide. And inside my middle-aged brain, a movie plays. The pop art radiance of ambulance lights, then the cold eye of a weary doctor who rubs the bridge of his nose and glances back at the darkly cloaked hospital chaplain before clearing his throat to speak. Enough of that, I say. I don't want you to hurt yourself, trying to sound composed when what I mean is, I love you. Please don't die on me the way my mother did. Something about Missouri in November, the trees so recently vacant of leaves, that and another bad triglycerides reading have me on high alert. But then I hear we've all gone half insane with protectiveness, and I believe it. Can remember how Mom used to let us roam freely the trailer park in the thick woods, how we skipped alongside passing Amtraks, checking in only for Kool-Aid and ham sandwiches. God, I wish I could go back, take her by the shoulders, look her in the eyes and say, come on, just pay attention. Not at all for those sweet dangers that she permitted us, but because our time together was already evaporating. Maybe like one more? On request?
55.
What?
55.
55. A moment in Kansas. I can read that here. In Missouri, you can't, like, people are befuddled by the fact that anyone would ever write a poem about Kansas. Because everybody in Missouri hates Kansas. And so they're like, why would you ever do that? Why would you go to Kansas? And then why would you write about it? So, somewhere in Kansas, a night train torches through the dark stomach of the prairie. The man in the car on the rural route turns his head for just a moment. He wonders if he has ever made his father proud. But only a moment. Now he turns from the disembodied flames. At the crossroad, he signals left. The engine hums the ballad of whatever comes after. And let's find a good one to close on. Sophie likes this one too. She always asks me to read it. This is because she is the star. So when we were in Santa Fe, New Mexico, we went to the Museum of International Folk Art, and the Day of the Dead art there is amazing. It's really incredible stuff, and Sophie was kind of obsessed with it. And so there was a lot of like pictures of angels and butterflies and stuff all around. And like Sophie, even at 3 years old, she didn't want anything to do with it. She just was like obsessed with these Day of the Dead figures, and I can see why they were kind of amazing. And so I wrote this poem. Wide blue sombrero, haloing grim and fleshless grin, while slim skeleton fingers survey fret and string. Across the wide aisle, carved angels ascend, like mariposas, like butterflies on pretty painted wings. My preschool daughter simply does not care, only moves her ear closer, as if trying to hear what words this tiny lone man sings. Thank you guys very much for listening and coming out. It's a great place to end this tour and to see so many familiar faces. If you guys are interested or have any questions, we've got a few minutes. I'd love to take a few and answer them.
This is kind of a collected poems or a selected?
It's generally, so it's very funny. Like, so people will call these new and selected sometimes. Mine's a little more than a new and selected because it really is the majority of the poems from my first 3 collections. The way I say it is, instead of selecting which poems I would keep or which poems I would put in it, I selected which poems I would throw out. So basically I got to revise my first 3 books and get rid of things that I would never want you guys to read. And pretend like I never wrote them, we're gonna act like they don't exist anymore, right? So things that, I mean, you always sort of graduate on from spaces where you were and the type of writing you were doing. And those were ones, I was happy to shed and say, they don't really fit. So it was a chance to like build something, 15 years worth of work that really is very strongly thematically tied, I would say. The answer to your question is 7. You didn't know you had that question yet, but that's the answer. Well, listen, folks, because it's the end of the year and I've been touring this thing for a while, I do not have signed copies available today. If you are interested, though, I am about to have another shipment come in here very soon. So if you want to buy a copy today, they're $20 shipped, and I will ship a signed copy to you. Happy to do so. And you can pay me just about any way that you can think of. If anybody's interested in getting those, I'm interested in you getting those. Selling stuff is really cool. And I'll even hang out and talk to you and do all those nice things to help you take one of those beautiful books home. So.
And what about the people who are on YouTube watching? How can they get a hold of your book?
The best way to get a hold of it is you could get it through Amazon. I don't recommend that. It doesn't really help anybody except Amazon. Or you can find me online and get a hold of me, and I'll give you ordering instructions through like Venmo. And you can just order from the stock that I get, and that will help you guys get a signed copy. So, and folks who watch the streaming, thank you for joining us as well. I appreciate you guys being here too. So,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you, Captain. You guys feel like cultured now.
I want to thank everybody for coming. We can chat, and you can continue to ask questions and figure out how to get a book straight from Justin, but thanks everybody for being here. It's felt like a wonder, this is Thanksgiving week, and I'm just so thankful that you're here and you're all here, and it feels like friends and family. And we even had green bean casserole in one of the poems, so yay! So thanks, Justin, Hamm. Thanks, Lindsay, for helping tonight. Thanks for everybody who's here in person and online. And it's wonderful to have you here at the Normal Public Library. All right, have fun.
Yeah, thank you folks so much for coming out.
Yeah, thanks so much for the meet you in person. Thank you guys for coming out.
Yeah, yeah.
Daily life.
1 yard line.
The other problem.